What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I'm your host, Chris. We are in the middle of June. We are still in Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and again, as I said the episodes before this one, check up on your strong friends. This isn't just for men. This is just across the board. Check up on the people that are silent in your life. We don't know what everybody's going through. If you find yourself in crisis, please dial 988. The suicide hotline definitely helps you in a dark place and has helped me tremendously. So I highly recommend that as one of your resources. With that being said, today's guest is an author, a film producer, a mental health advocate in recovery who's here to tell his story. Please help me welcome Larry Smith. Larry, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right.
Glad to hear it, man. Thank you so much for coming on today's show. I'm really looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah.
Um, Before we get into your story and just your journey in general, what does men's mental health mean to you?
Uh, ch Doing more than just speaking to your brother, and making sure that you checking up and seeing if they're truly okay. Like, is everything okay, beyond the shadows of everyday life and bills and what goes on.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I think it's so important to check up on our fellow man or just our fellow human beings for that matter, just because so many of us suffer in silence. It's hard to admit that we're not okay, and it's hard to admit when we need help. So definitely try to encourage everybody that I talk to speak out, including yourself, man. So um let's talk a little bit about your story, man. Where does it all begin for you?
Uh, well, I could start in Killeen, Texas, but I might need to start before there, which um, I was born in Houston, Texas, and I was going. I started going to college there, and well, actually, I went off to college, and we can start in Baltimore, Maryland, where I went to college, and then after Baltimore is where I went up, came back home, and then I went and moved to Killeen, Texas, or Fort Hood, Texas, which is an army base, if don't nobody know. But I was living there, and I wasn't really heavy into drugs at all. Was just living life, and you know, um, just so happened to have a roommate that brought up ecstasy, and basically the way he described it made me want to try it. And if I could just, I want to say if I could go back and redo that moment, I could, but then I would be regretting and pulling back on everything I've accomplished. So I can't really say that. But that night I went out, fast forward, that night I went out looking for ecstasy pill. And when I found it, uh, everything changed from that moment on. Like I took it, drunk a lot of water, and that night, I say after 2 weeks, things started changing in my brain. Like things started becoming more weird, like sounds and things and the way things smelled to me. My system was changing. So when that happened, I knew that something wasn't right, but I couldn't explain to nobody that something wasn't right because I became nonverbal. I didn't talk to anyone. I became very, very silent. And that's when that my illness, that I have schizophrenia, is drug induced. What a lot of people need to understand. If you took a drug and it changed your mental state, your illness is drug induced. So what happened was my brothers had to come and get me because I was not myself. I was staying with some friends, and when they came and got me, they brought me home back to Houston, and I was just, out of it, man. Laying in the bed every day for like almost a year, not talking to anyone, just wondering like what is going on with me, because I used to be a normal kid, I was normal, played basketball every day. I was a good basketball player, but no one could just truly figure out like what happened to Larry because he used to be this cool going, outgoing person, and now he's not saying anything to anybody, silent. So long story short, when that happened, things started changing in my household when I got back home to Houston. Uh, I can actually talk about this. It's hard to talk about it, but I'm going to do it because it's not your average thing that happens. But because of drugs, this is why it happened. Like I tried to commit suicide. I tried to take my own mother's life with, doing stuff that, just wasn't myself. I talk about this in my movie, and acted out or whatnot, but I just didn't really know who my family was. I wasn't aware. I knew who they were, but I couldn't socialize with them enough to figure out what was really going on. So, with that being said, um, a year had passed by, and before you know it, I told my parents, I said, you know what, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Can I go to school? But really, I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to get away because, I had hair all over my face. I was not myself. You don't want nobody to see you like that. So I wanted to get away from all that until I find myself. So what I did was I got some money from my parents, and I caught a Greyhound to Las Vegas. I left. I just took off, crawled out the window, caught a cab, and that was just, my way of helping myself. And, when I got out to Vegas, I slowly became normal again, I should say. That's why I say like traveling truly heals people. You know, it truly heals people, and it helped me a lot. And so, with that being said, after all of that happened, years later, you know, I started writing books. I started writing. I started journaling. I don't want to say journaling. I started writing poetry, and then before you know it, poetry became these published books that I wanted to do. So I started publishing books, and but years went by, like almost 9 years, and of trying to promote to get people to do the story on what happened to me, the movie, but I couldn't get that accomplished. So I took things into my own matter, and I got my funding together, and I produced the movie, The Other Side of Ecstasy, on what happened. And I produced a documentary on what happened. And there's also a memoir that I wrote and had somebody, reutilize it and put it together. And so the book, the documentary, and the movie is called The Other Side of Ecstasy. So with that being said, I mean that's my story in a nutshell. That's what I push for. And like I say, just like you, I'm a cold-hearted to the depth mental health advocate, and I don't say that for anything other than to give somebody light that was like I was in that bed, not talking to anybody, not socializing, and dealing with paranoia. Maybe they can see this because when I was like that, I could understand stuff. But if I could see somebody like myself, and that may have could have brought me out of that state, so
Right.
that's why I do what I do. So to become an advocate to help, people like myself.
Right. So I just want to pull out something really quick that you said before you began telling your story, and I think it's really important that you said it. And that was getting the strength to talk about the hard parts of the story, right? Talking
Yeah, yeah.
about
Hmm.
attempting to take your mom's life as well.
Hmm.
Um, I think it speaks to your character on just how much, not only that you've been through, but how much you're willing to share, and all the strength that you have amounted since then to be able to tell your story word for word and to tell your truth. And not only that, but hold yourself accountable for the things that you were doing. So thank you for being able to share that part of your story because I feel when we tell our stories, sometimes we're not sure if we should tell everything because there's a lot of sticky parts, right?
Yeah.
And I feel when we start talking about all of that nasty, sticky stuff that's in the middle of our story, we can
Hmm.
truly heal and we can truly be uh, an important part of ourselves. So again, thank you so much for sharing that part of your story, man.
And I just want to say real quick that the movie shows how I tried to take my mom's life.
Right.
I put that in there for legitimate reasons,
Hmm.
so
Yeah, and like I said, man, I think it's super important that you hold yourself accountable and, just admitting to your strengths, admitting to your struggles. I think it's,
mhm.
especially as a man, we are told our whole life not to, right? We're told not to
Yeah,
share what we went,
yeah.
right?
Just be a man.
Yeah. And I find it interesting that, after you try the ecstasy and you just kind of shut down internally and you shut out everybody around you, um, and then you decided to get away, that you needed to heal and basically unplug yourself away from everybody around you.
Yeah, because going to Vegas, people are put on antipsychotics and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That was my medicine, leaving. And I'm telling you, when I got there, I was on the Greyhound and I looked up and I saw the Vegas Luxor building, the pyramid, and immediately my mind was just at peace. I said, man, this is amazing. That feeling of seeing that pyramid and seeing the sun hitting the pyramid and being there in Vegas, somewhere else besides that room that I was locked away in a whole year, man, you don't know what that did for me, bro.
Yeah, that freedom,
Wow.
man. I can only
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess what advice would you give to others facing, a similar situation to the peer pressure of trying drugs such as ecstasy or anything else?
I would say be ready because it's going to happen. Be ready because you never know what somebody is going to ask you based on who you're dealing with. That's why it's important to know who and who not to deal with because who you're not supposed to be dealing with, you're going to get those questions. Do you want to try this? And whether they mean harm or not, you don't want to be in that situation. But what I would say to them is don't worry about feeling weak as if, if I don't do this, they're going to think that I'm weak. No, actually, you're the strongest one in the room when you say no. You're the strongest one in the room.
Absolutely. Because peer pressures, you and I both know as older men, peer pressure sucks.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to the peer
It
pressure.
is, it is, man. It is. It does suck, man. Yeah, you're right.
What do you feel was the key steps in your recovery progress, and how did you stay motivated during those difficult times?
Uh, really, the keys steps in my recovery was blocking everybody out, channeling everybody out, not worrying what people thought of me, not worrying what people thought of me because I have schizophrenia. I just learned to block everybody out, and I had no choice but to face my obstacles head on. And when I did that, I just grew out of I grew out of dealing with the suppression of feeling weary and feeling bad and feeling weak and feeling, all of the things that comes with taking medication. But the hardest thing that I want to talk about is that when you're on medication, and you have to deal with friends and family, sometimes the biggest pressure, and this is bigger pressure than peer pressure, is when your family and friends want you to be this person you used to be before you got diagnosed.
Right.
That is the hardest thing, man. It's like trying to lift a weight that you cannot bear to live because they're saying, "Come on, let's go to such and such house. We having a get together. How the hell am I gonna go to a get together and I can't even speak to you right now?" You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the hardest part right there, man.
Yeah.
So my recovery was really just growing, growing and growing. Like it was just me and God, to be honest. I not trying to make this religious, but that's all I had, man. I
Yeah.
didn't have no one else like besides my immediate family and the people that stuck by me that just couldn't help me, but didn't wanted to help me, but didn't know how to help me.
Right.
You know, the Almighty Most High, stuck
Yeah.
with me, and I just talk to Him every day because I know that because I promised Him one day that if He helped me get my mind back when I was like I was in the bed, if He helped me get my mind back, I would dedicate my life to helping people as an advocate.
Yeah. And I think it's important for us to have a belief system, man. I
Mhm.
don't I don't want anybody to ever feel shame coming on here and thinking that you can't talk about your belief system because I think it's super important to have.
Yeah.
And so um I think that, I agree with you being able to be around family and them expecting you to act some type of way and pretend like nothing happened is super difficult.
Yeah.
Growing up in a mentally abusive household with my mom, and just, when we go to dinners with her and other family members around, and I'm supposed to pretend like, everything is all great and we're all a happy family. And, it's just not the case, right?
Mm-mm.
So I can only imagine how much you limited your interactions with people.
It was very limited. It was times where, I just sat at home and I would just cry, man, because it's like the depression would sit on me so strong that I didn't know how to translate my feelings to people because they weren't trying to. I don't want to say they weren't trying to hear it, but it made me feel like they wasn't trying to hear it.
Right.
That's what it made me feel like, and it's like that may
You
or
didn't
may
feel
not
heard.
have been people's intentions.
Yeah. You didn't feel heard. You didn't feel seen.
Mm-mm. No, I didn't, and that's one of the reasons why, as an advocate, I advocate so much to try to break the stigma of, the outside world and how they feel about us and how certain ones feel a certain way about us. Not
Right.
all of them, but most of the ones who are undiagnosed, some people in a nutshell tend to feel like they're better. And as a writer, as a producer, you know, I tend to like try to emulate and show them a different light of us, and show, hey, I know you may think one thing or see one thing, but this is what it is, like we're all trying to make it. No one should be judged on who they are based on what they're going through,
Mhm.
because my illness can happen to anybody
Yeah. Right.
that deals with any type of pressure, somebody losing someone, bam, not any medicine. So don't separate people because of what they have from the
Right.
rest of the world. You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
completely agree.
Right.
So let's talk about your writing a little bit. You had mentioned that you were writing poetry, essentially journaling, but it was more poetry than it was anything else. Um, what made you want to, I guess, what was that aha moment for you to start writing your story and share it with the world?
My aha moment was when I found out that that thought in my mind when I first started writing that I want a book, I want a book, I want a book. Before I had a book, when I first saw me on back of a book, and I said, "Well, I can publish this book. Well, and I actually can do it without being famous.
Right.
I can publish a book." So that aha moment was when I met a person, and he was like 20 years into writing, and he was telling me, he helped me take my words and format them into the book, for my story. So I just started writing it and channeling a lot of different energies and really just put it out there, trying to put myself in third person based on what happened and just really just elaborate and tell people what happened to me.
Right. So when you started writing your book, and we tend to revisit our experiences and what we went through, um, I guess how difficult was it to relive that past for you? Like, did you do a good job at like kind of separating your past from the present, or is it just kind of like reliving it again?
Nah, I really separated it because I put myself, I started putting myself at a mental state where I'm an author now. I'm a writer. So, which is I am an author. So I put my mentality was to separate from all of that energy that happened to me and just really just focus, key in on writing this story and getting it out.
Right. And when it turned into a film, you said you got your funding and everything together. How did you choose, who was the right people to bring in to like play certain roles? How did that whole process work?
It worked out perfect, to be honest, because a lot of the people, some of the actors I never even met before, some of them, and they really just they took a liking to it. Like they almost treated me as if, you know what, like I know, this movie is not gonna take off immediately, but we're gonna ride it out with you until it does. That's how, what I'm saying? That's how my actors and actresses, deal with me.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's powerful for people to say they're going to ride with you because some people are just in it for a paycheck, right? Some people are just, oh yeah, this is another notch on my belt. So it's great you had a
Yeah,
support system there.
definitely. Yeah.
Before before you guys started filming, I'm assuming did they read your book before you guys started filming, or
No,
how does that work?
they actually looked over the script.
Hmm.
It
Okay.
it was I had someone write a script, but a lot of them I talked to them about what happened to me, and a lot of them knew already what happened to me, but some of them didn't. But we went over a script and we went down that script. We didn't go exactly how the script went because the way it was written, everything just didn't happen the way we had to fictionalize some stuff,
Right.
and but we got it done, and before you know it, they saw my what my intentions was with the movie.
So when you say fictionalized, do you mean like you just had to like polish up some of the stuff just so it would get produced and
Yeah,
get
I had to write it. I had to act it out in a way where it would fit inside of the story.
hmm
Where basically polish it up. Yeah.
Yeah. How has sharing your journey impacted others who may be struggling with substance use or peer pressure?
Hmm. You know, I believe, I haven't had a lot of people because my message hasn't gotten out there that much yet.
Right.
But I've had people to express to me, hey, I like what you're doing, and I do believe that my story is inspiring people because I have some people coming to me about certain drugs that they've been on or they're struggling with or drinking or whatnot, but they never. I don't have a big enough fan base for them to relate to me,
Right.
with
Right.
yeah.
So, I've always feel like that one person, no matter what time of our life it is, that one person's going to hear your message, and that could be the match that starts that wildfire for you, right? I always
Hmm.
feel doesn't matter if it's one person or 100 people. I think your story is definitely one that could, go over well in recovery groups and just people trying to find that motivation in life that are stuck with their recovery journey or just addiction that they're not sure how to fight. And I guess the people that are struggling with addiction, what would be your biggest message for them?
That is struggling with addiction,
Yes.
I would say reach out to professional help. Like, don't take lightly these rehabilitation centers, AAU, and all of this stuff. This stuff works if you take it serious.
Right.
It works,
Yeah. I completely
So
agree. I
yeah.
think the biggest thing that people miss when it comes to recovery, when it comes to therapy, is putting in that work. You don't just
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
everything changes within a day, right?
Yeah. And you also have to have therapy. I don't care what you're going through. Get some therapy. Get somebody to come out maybe maybe twice a week and just come talk to you, man. Come sit down and say, hey, how's it going? How's everything going? You know, you okay? Because you need somebody, because you're struggling with something. So you need somebody to hold you accountable,
Right.
you know? So that's what you need.
You had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that you probably wouldn't go back and change your decision on trying that ecstasy because it brought you to your journey and your recovery and where you're at now in life. Um, if you could go back though and talk to your younger self before that pivotal decision of trying, what would you say to him?
Man, I would say exactly what I said at the beginning of this show. You're the strongest one in the room if you say no. You're the strongest one in the room if you say no. Like literally, that let's just say I did try to change things back then, and I said, you know what? I heard him say elaborate on how good ecstasy was, but then what if I'd have said, you know what? That's cool, man, but that's not for me. You know,
Right.
I don't think that's for me. I don't think I want to try that. But but again, uh, it's all about who you deal with, on an everyday basis, or what type of people you're around. What are these people? What do these people that you are around? What do they do with their life? You know, that's a major important thing too.
Yeah. So this question I had written down for you specifically because I feel everybody's definition of the word success is completely different, right?
Hmm.
Due to your experience and just your journey in general, how would you define success and fulfillment now compared to before your experience with ecstasy?
Wow. Man, to be honest, how would I describe success if my fulfillment? I would say success would be based on the work that you put into what you love to do so much, the work that you put in. Because if you consistently put the work in, your status is going to change in your career, and you're going to develop, you're going to get better and better. And the more you do something, the better you get at it. So the more you do it, like myself, um I've been writing 15 years, but I do want to be, a famous author, which people would say you already are a famous author. But when I say famous author, I mean, the people like Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, you know, uh, people like that, like on that level, but because I'm self-published, but I don't downplay that because I'm still getting my message out.
Yeah,
Still getting my message out. I'm still being heard. It's just one of the goals that I hold myself accountable for. And I know it's a very big goal, and people tend to be afraid of big goals.
yeah,
Well, I don't know about that, but it challenges me. Like, okay, it may be big, it may seem out of touch, but I like the fact that I can look at something far-fetched and say, you know what, I'm gonna get that. Like for another one of my dreams I like to mention in the shows is that I want to make Oprah's book club. I want to make her book club. I want to tell my story on her podcast, and I believe and know that I'm going to do that. I believe that.
I love that. So compared to that faithful night that you left for Vegas and where you're at now in your life, how has your relationship with your family, I guess, grew?
Mm, it has grown. Yeah, it has grown because from the time where I wasn't able to translate my feelings to them to now I can socialize and talk with them better. And I believe that they feel like they got the old Larry back, my family. That's just what I think. I don't know. But, yeah.
Do you feel like you're seen and understood a lot more than you were back then?
Yeah, I feel like I'm understood more, but I still feel like I'm misunderstood. I
And do
still
you
feel
feel
like
like
I'm
it's because
mis
of your diagnosis or
um Yeah, not just the diagnosis, but just by a person with a diagnosis that has goals and dreams in life.
Right, right.
That between those two right there, it's like it's trying to uh how can I put it? No one, it seems like some people cannot look past the fact that because you're diagnosed, you can't have a dream. You can't go and master something at the ability that a normal person could.
Hmm.
That's where I feel like that's what treads the line for me. With
So you kind of
certain,
feel like you're still in that box.
yeah, yeah, not so much, but kinda,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so other than podcasts, are there any other ways that you're getting your story out there? I know it's on Amazon and I know you have the places where you have your film and your book. Are you doing any like speaking opportunities at schools or anything like that?
I spoke at my old high school. Uh, I believe this was like in what is it 20 the beginning? No, it was the beginning of no, the end of 2023. I spoke at my old high school to some ninth graders, and I let them know my story and stuff like that. And I was basically very transparent with them about everything.
Yeah.
Like peer pressure. Not gonna sugarcoat nothing because kids they see right through you, man. If you come in their bullhorn and they talking that mess, they go like, "Ah, you fake this," So
Right.
I was real with them and be like, let them know like this is what happened to me, and this doesn't separate it from happening to you.
And how did that make you feel after you were done speaking to them?
Very good.
Yeah?
Yeah, very
Do you feel
good.
like they took that message to heart?
I did because they asked questions at the end.
Really?
Yeah, they were asking questions. I think they were more puzzled by you know how can taking a pill make you do all that?
Yeah.
That's kind of what puzzled them.
Right. Right.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted that to puzzle them.
Hmm. Um, what advice would you give to somebody who is struggling to tell their story or to find their voice? I guess not only sharing their story, but trying to say that they're not okay.
Um, I would say be careful who you tell your biggest dreams to.
Hmm.
Be careful, be picky about who you talk your success to. Be picky about that. Feel people out and actually find out who am I talking to? Will they accept it? How do they accept it? What will they throw back at me if I tell them this? So just be first of all, be careful about that. And second of all, just basically, you know, how can I put it? Live your life, live your life and don't worry about how someone may feel about because of what you have.
Right.
Because you cannot change what you have no more than they can change what they have. So just be yourself, and stick to your dreams and goals. Make goals, stick to them, and and care less about what someone thinks about you.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, especially the very first part of being careful on who you tell your dreams for, because or to because people these days can use that stuff as weapons towards you. So it's
Hmm.
definitely dangerous to just let anybody in and not have those internal boundaries for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so I had asked about your relationship with your family, but I guess more specifically, I wanted to ask how your relationship is with your mom.
Me and my mom are good. Like
Yeah.
we're good. Yeah, we're good. It's just like one of them things that we don't talk about. We
Mm.
don't talk about it.
Did she watch the film?
Yeah, she did. She
Wow.
liked it. She watched it. She didn't say anything about, she loved it. She said, I like it. She watched it. Her and my dad watched it together.
Incredible. That's
Yeah.
healing, man. That the power of healing is incredible.
Yeah, definitely, man. Because it could have been the case where, she feels some type of way, so yeah.
Do you have any upcoming events or anything that you're looking forward to?
I have a podcast. Well, yeah, I go on Film Freeway for the film festivals, and I submitted a screenplay from one of my books that I wrote. The movie that I'm filming right now, my second movie, which is called Black Gold Down Under. I submitted it to a film festival in London.
Wow,
This is a
terrific.
screenplay contest, so I'm looking to see the results on July 7th and see if it gets picked up. So
Yeah, that'd be
hopefully, so if it
great.
gets picked up, hopefully I don't have to shoot this film myself, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So at the end of every podcast, I like to read a mental health related quote or just some inspiring closing words. Before we get to that quote, though, where can our listeners find you on socials?
Yeah, my Facebook is Larry Smith the third. I have a business page which is for my films and books, which is Mustard Seed Films Entertainment, and my Instagram is author Larry Smith, and and also my website is www.authorlarrywaltersmith.org. I'm gonna
Perfect.
say it again, authorlarrywaltersmith.org. That's my website.
All right, so before I read my quote, do you have anything that you want to close the show out with?
Yeah, I want to tell people that, when you feel like, the chips are down and everybody's against you and what you're working at, you feel like it's just not working out. I want to give up, just take into consideration that no hard work goes unrewarded.
Absolutely.
No hard work goes unrewarded. Just keep that in the back of your mind because, in other words, you know, no matter how hard you work and not a penny that you see from it, you're gonna see it. Just keep working
Which
eventually.
strangely enough kind of goes with the quote that I have too. So I love that you said that. I'm going to explain the picture first before I read the quote.
Mhm.
It's four pictures. It's a picture of a skeleton in a grave, a skull, a cemetery, and a tombstone. Skeleton reads, I was a millionaire. Skull reads, I was famous. Cemetery reads, I had a perfect body. And the tombstone reads, I was always in control. Quote reads, no matter what you owned or achieved, it won't matter on your deathbed. So stop desperately chasing. Enjoy the present moment and be kind to others. Love your family, love your partner, stay connected to your friends, and make time for you. That's what really counts.
That's deep. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's important.
It's all a matter of how we take care of our minds and take care of the people around us that truly matters. It's not how much money you got in the bank. It's not the fancy clothes that we see people wear. It's we live in a society where traditional values have slowly disappeared and there's a handful of us that are trying to hold on to those values still, man. So, Larry, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, man. It's you have a very powerful story, and I hope people that are listening get something out of it because I definitely got a lot out of it. So, thank you.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me on the show. And hopefully, I've been trying to reach out to Joe Rogan and stuff like that to get on this podcast. Hopefully, I can. Maybe, he sees
That'd be
this.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
For all my listeners, thank you guys as always for your support. Until next time, be gentle with yourselves and much love.